Israeli Ambassador Danny Danon all but issued an ultimatum to Hezbollah that war is coming earlier today. But one wonders when he's looking at when you look at what he said, is the warning to Hezbollah or is it to the United States and to the larger global community? It's unclear, but probably he had all of those audiences in mind. What is clear is that Israel is doing everything in their power. All of the preparations, all of the steps, all the actions appear to be set for Israel to roll into southern Lebanon and expand the war. This is a terrible development. And as I will show you again, and we did a story on this yesterday, and I'm giving you an update because there's been new additional information, especially with Dan in here. You'll see in a minute. But this is bad for Israel. If they think that they're going to succeed here and going to bring peace to their country, and by all accounts, that is what they believe, this could just be putting a torch both to their future and to the Middle East, and will definitely risk an escalation of the war to additional parties well outside of the Gaza Strip, which is where it's been relegated to since the 7th of October of last year. First of all, let's start off by seeing exactly what Ambassador Danon said today.
If Hezbollah is not pushed back from our border to north of the Litani River through diplomatic efforts, Israel will be left with no choice but to use any means within our rights to defend our citizens and enable the evacuees of the north to return to their homes. And I call the parties to act now before it's too late, because we don't want to see escalation in the region. We have no intention to enter a war with Hezbollah and Lebanon, but we cannot continue the way it is.
Okay, again, wordsmithing here. You need to understand the definitions. When he says diplomacy, and when he says we have no intention of starting a war with Hezbollah, it doesn't mean the normal usage of the words in English that you think of, because diplomacy in his terms means the physical surrender of Hezbollah and the evacuation of all of southern Lebanon. That's precisely what he's asking. When he says diplomatic terms, that's what he's meaning. He would like diplomatically for them to leave so that they don't have to go in. That part is true. For sure, Israel would rather have all of those people evacuate themselves willingly without having to go in. But he definitely means that they will go in, because there's not going to be any surrender. As bad as Hezbollah has been hurt in the past several days, and this past week, especially with the twin attacks with the pager bombings and then the walkie-talkies the day after, and then this huge airstrike into the capital city of Beirut, which killed quite a lot of people, to include some key members of the Hezbollah army. They're one of their chief of staff, I believe. So they are definitely taking action to do everything. Now, when he also says that we have no intention of war, of course, he has every intention of going to war. All the pieces are already rolling. Things are in place right now. The only thing we haven't seen so far is the physical movement of the troops across the border. And I do believe that they probably are trying to see if they can somehow get the United States to put pressure on Hezbollah through whatever means to evacuate. I just see literally no chance that would happen, because most of these Hezbollah fighters are ideologically inclined. And of course, the hatred is palpable on both sides of that line, both north and south. And it's just like Israel is locked in, and there's no way they're going to give up on this. So is the Hezbollah side. They are locked in on this, and they're not going to give up either, especially because they spent more than a decade of time preparing for just such an incursion here. And they do have a few cards to play. And just as a reminder, here's a map of the border area that you see that what the ambassador was talking about when he says our people to go back. This is the border between Lebanon and Israel. On the lower right-hand side, you see this red and then pink areas, which represent different distances from the border where Israeli citizens have been forced to evacuate their homes. And so there's somewhere around 100,000 Israelis who've been out for 11 months, and they want to go back home. They're putting political pressure on the Netanyahu government to act. Looks like that pressure is about ready to explode. On the left side, you see on the northern side of that same border, the red area there, is Lebanese people who have also been forced to evacuate from their area. Now, when we talk about what's going to happen, now we've been showing you a lot of stuff from Yoav Gallant. We've in not the distant past, we've shown you a lot of things that Netanyahu himself has said, and now then we're getting to what this next person is going to tell you is money time. Now, this is an interview earlier that was posted earlier today by The Sun in the UK, and also by Reuters, I think jointly. He's an ex-Mossad agent. And you will see, again, just like with the clip we showed you yesterday from the former Prime Minister Bennett on U.S. television, where he was emphatic that this is going to happen and that he wants the Israeli government to do more than it's been doing militarily. This guy's saying that right now, folks, it's money time.
I hope that we will be soon over the limited war, but we cannot finish this without a limited war, okay? I have a family members from the north of Israel. They will not go home. They will never go home and think about the fact that 3 kilometers from the house, the borderline, and there is a Hezbollah that can just come in and do a second massacre, a second 7 October. And by the way, the Hamas declare all the time that he will do it again and again. Okay, we try to do a peace with them. We tried. It's not just killing the chief of staff, the Hezbollah chief of staff. You are talking about thousands of people and affected by 10,000s of people, 20,000 of people. All the world saw what happened yesterday, and this is the money time. Okay, do it or not. This is the money time. And also the Israeli government declared that they are moving to the north. This is the time to move to the north.
So you see there, he's emphatically saying that. Now, he's also saying something really interesting, that it's not only time to go to the north, and he's going to tell you what he means by that and what he understands the Israeli government means by that. And I think there is a lot of reason to listen to what he says there, because he is an ex-Mossad agent, is well connected for sure. But he's trying to conflate a couple of things. Now, just like with the ambassador there and with nearly all the Israeli public statements, you have to understand definitions. And what they're trying to do is coming across the sound, we're being very reasonable. Just like you heard the ambassador a while ago say, we're hoping to get this through negotiations and diplomacy. And then you hear this Mossad agent say, hey, we tried peaceful meetings. We did. But, they're going to do another October 7th. This is where he starts to conflate things to make their side sound reasonable instead of the aggressive side that it really is, that this is going to be war against a people. So he says they're so close to the border, they would do another October 7th. They being in that sentence, Lebanese people, the Hezbollah, or just the people that live on the northern side of the border. So he's saying that if there are people existing on the northern side of the Israeli border, then another October 7th is going to happen. And then he goes on to say that they say they'll keep doing more and more October 7th. But that sentence, the they, equals Hamas, which are in the Palestinian areas of the Gaza Strip. And they did say that to be true. They did say that after the thing, because their hatred for Israel was so high, and they were being braggadocious and saying, yeah, we'll keep doing these things over and over, which was stupid from their side, because it legitimizes the Israeli position in those regards. But that's a separate issue. The Hamas side we'll deal with on another time here. But we're talking right now about the potential for major war and a major escalation of this conflict, which is I will say in nobody's interest. Israel will say it is in their interest, because you can see in this guy's comments here, he's again talking about the Israeli people that live in that border strip I just showed you, apparently somebody that he knows as well. And they are convinced that the only way to move back is to have basically a large buffer. And the description, which was mentioned specifically by the ambassador, is the Litani River. And as I've showed you in previous episodes, that's about 25 kilometers north. 25 kilometers north of the border. It is a huge step. And it is an enormous, substantial. Yeah, that's the one right there. Thanks, Gary. So you see the Litani River about the halfway up to that. It's a huge, huge area. And militarily, it is enormously difficult to do, and it's going to require so much more. The 2006 Israel-Lebanese war, which some of these the map here, this is what that's from, and shows some of the movements of it. That was nothing, absolutely nothing compared to what this one would be, because you see that they basically just had a few of these big arrow movements that went up into the areas you see there on the right. But they didn't conquer anything. They didn't drive anyone out of anywhere. They just made some movements and destroyed a bunch of stuff and then came back. What these guys are saying is their current objective is to clear everyone out. And if you need any more clarification on exactly what they mean, let's go back to this Mossad agent and listen to this.
I know that the Israeli government declared this week that there is a new target for this war. To bring back the families to the north. You cannot bring them to the war without destroying and push all the Hezbollah from the border. And we will make a death zone behind our border, okay? Zero people, zero villages, nothing. Everyone that will go there, we will shut down.
Okay, that is really, really important to understand here, because he just told you a death song. He wants a death song for everyone living up there. And I'm going to show you something on the map here, because when he's talking about everyone who's north of the border, look, okay, here again is the border. This is on Google Earth here. This is the border between Israel and Lebanon. And you see, this is the same area where I just showed you on that map that Gary was looking at here. But now then, when he says wipe all these out, look at all these. Again, this is the border here. All of these towns and villages were thousands upon thousands, which he admitted. He said tens of thousands of people, all of them, every village, every person, all of it cleared out. So whether that is the official Israeli position or not is unclear, but that is what his understanding of it is. And it's hard to argue with the logic on the surface of it, because if you want to bring the people back to the security so that there's no more risk of any bombs and stuff coming from the Hezbollah side, then they have to be physically cleared out. Because if you leave any of the area open, then of course you can't distinguish between Hezbollah fighters and just people who live there. So the Israeli intention is to literally wipe out everybody and push them all out and create this big zone. Now, does he mean all the way up to the Litani River? Do they mean like a 5-kilometer strip or something, or maybe a couple of kilometers, like something like they're talking about some of the border areas around the Gaza Strip, which Israel is also talking about clearing everything out of a certain strip away from the rest of Israel so that nothing can get in there. So they're talking about doing it already there. Now then, apparently that's one of the objectives here. And that is literally wiping everyone out, folks. This is a big, big deal. And not only is this militarily incredibly difficult with the size of the Israeli forces, not only would it be enormously expensive in terms of ammunition, weapons, other military supplies. I mean, it would be far, far more than anything they've done in the last 11 months in the Gaza area, because that militarily is a much easier target, because the other side doesn't have a lot of capabilities, and they're literally surrounded and fenced in, so they can't. It's very, very difficult for them to get anything from the outside. That's not the case for Lebanon. Israel doesn't have the capacity to seal it off, so anything in the world would be able to continue to come in, and they would be able to get supplies on the other side, and there's more of them. And much more importantly, they have defensive positions, and they've already prepared for this for well over a decade. But the bigger issue is for the region, if the global public is already upset at Israel for everything that's happened here and what's happening to the Palestinians in Gaza Strip and in the West Bank, if Israel now accelerates that and goes north and now adds another people group to its target list, and the majority, obviously substantial majority of all the people that live in that southern part of Lebanon are just Lebanese civilians, men, women, children, just trying to live. And of course, as I think I've mentioned before, their economy is devastated right now from the effects of decades of civil war before and just the terrible economic conditions, up to 40% unemployment. So they're just destitute already. And if now Israel comes in there and starts just crushing everybody and moving them back, folks, I think the chances that the global community allows that is pretty remote. One of the first questions is, will Iran come and join with Hezbollah? That's a toss-up. It could go either way. There's reasons why they would and reasons why they wouldn't, and it remains to be seen what they would. But the bigger issues may be, what would the rest of the region and the rest of the globe do? It is not for sure, and Israel is rolling the dice to think that even Western Europe is going to stay behind them if they do. And I think that they probably won't, because feelings and emotions are already on the edge and tattered from what they have. And Israel has destroyed so much goodwill that it has had in the Western world for decades, that it has built up, that it is shredding a lot of that as we speak. So far, the only stalwart is the United States. And if anybody thinks the U.S. is going to put any pressure on Israel not to do this, you're going to be a little bit disappointed. Here is what Vice President Kamala Harris said last month in an interview.
Israel has a right to defend itself, we would. And how it does so matters. Far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. And we have got to get a deal done. We were in Doha. Mm-hmm. We have to get a deal done. This war must end. In the meantime, and we must get a deal that is about getting the hostages out. I've met with the families of the American hostages. Let's get the hostages out. Let's get the ceasefire done.
But no change in policy in terms of arms and so forth.
No, we have to get a deal done.
Wow, that was one of the very few hard questions that Dana Bash asked the vice president. This was after her inauguration as the Democratic nominee in their convention in Chicago. And you see, when specifically asked, so you wouldn't withhold anything back if they don't do that? No, we just need a deal done. Of course, all the rest of the stuff she said was just campaign rhetoric and divorced from any kind of reality. We have to get a deal done. What does that even mean? So that's what the person who wants to become the next president is saying, and is the current vice president. But what about the person who is the president right now? Maybe he's going to push back. Well, yesterday, when asked that very question specifically about a potential war against Hezbollah in Lebanon, he added this.
Northern Israel and southern Lebanon are able to go back to their homes and go back safely. And the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, our whole team is working in the intelligence community to try to get that done. We're going to keep at it till we get it done, but we've got a way to go.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. We're moving this way. Is
it realistic to get to a ceasefire deal, or has too many bad things happened that make it difficult?
If I ever said it's not realistic, we might as well leave. A lot of things don't look realistic until we get them done. We have to keep at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you.
And you know what he reveals there in that last segment, we just have to keep at it until we get it done. And there's always hope. What that tells you is that there is no backbone left in the man, politically speaking, diplomatically speaking, as a leader. He loves to talk about how we're the most powerful nation in the world. He loves to talk about how we shape events. We're not. And now then, here is the chance to show that you are that man, to show that you mean that you can shape events. And instead, you see a man who is sitting there not much different than me. I'm sitting here saying, here's what we should do. Here's what I would love to see done. I have no power at all. I have the influence merely of a camera and what we can put on YouTube. Why is the president of the United States, who has the power, who has every lever in the world and can just with an order make things happen, act like he's a person on YouTube that has no power? That's where we are right now. And I assure you, with everything in me, that those messages are clearly received in Jerusalem. And whether it's Benjamin Netanyahu, his war cabinet, or any of these other people, they see they have a green light to do whatever they want. And they know that if they launch into this, that the Biden administration is going to continue to just give hand over fist everything they're asking for. Because heading now just a mere weeks before the election, there is no chance that Biden is going to suddenly discover a backbone and turn against the Israeli government, which is a distinct from the Israeli people, I'll point out. But the Israeli government is going to get whatever they want, because he's not going to tell them as they're in war. Now then he's going to pull it back. Now that they've got a two-front war of their own making, that he's suddenly going to stop it now. Then it's, of course, it's completely too late. It would be political suicide, and he would be literally handing the election to Donald Trump, no matter what. So he won't do that. So the only chance he's got is right now, before any action is taken, before any tanks cross that border and they start what would be an irreversible. And of course, I see no chance that he's going to do that. Why would he do it now when he hasn't done it before, when the risks were even lower and the threshold for taking action was easier, politically speaking, for the president? So I think that we are condemned to see the war escalate, because now then Israel has painted itself into a corner with all of these braggadocious statements. It's hard to imagine them willingly not going forward with this and just maybe keeping airstrikes going or so, because that accomplishes nothing. You blow up a bunch of stuff, you kill a bunch of people. Again, that continues to tatter your image, but militarily, it doesn't do anything. It's not going to change anything on the ground. That Mossad agent was right. The only way that you can guarantee that there's not going to be any more rockets coming down is either to have a diplomatic solution where you give the other side something they want so that they choose to stop firing those rockets, which of course is the primary, the preferred method, because then nobody else has to die and everybody can live and safe. Israel has shown that they have no interest in that. Or you try the military form to shove everyone out. But the cost for doing it and the difficulty, it boggles my mind. I just cannot fathom how people who are allegedly military experts don't read their own history about how hard it was in 2006 and recognizing it's orders of magnitude more difficult now, not just because the Hezbollah side has spent a decade or more in preparing the groundwork for an invasion, but because the objectives themselves are substantially higher. The last time they wanted to punish Hezbollah for something they did, they had captured some Israeli soldiers and took them back across the border, and it was more a punitive raid than anything else. And they drove in there and they wanted to, have some symbolic values. The Battle of Bent Jabal, for example, was supposed to be a message, a political message that was sent, because I think that's where Hassan Nasrallah came from. But otherwise, it was a punitive deal. Then they came back. Well, now then the objective is that we need to clear a path. And I just showed you on the Google Earth map, all of those villages and towns would have to be white, and all the people have to be either killed or forced out, one or the other. And by any definition, folks, that's called ethnic cleansing. It's no different than what the Serbs were trying to do in the Balkans in the 90s, about getting everybody who wasn't Serb out of some of the areas where they had. And then we had all of that interventions going on there. The world is not going to stand by. As much as they have so far to the Israelis, that's one thing, because the people could at least have a fig leaf of cover saying, well, Hamas did do October 7th, and they are the ones that are running there. You can't make that claim here. Hezbollah had nothing to do with October 7th at all. So now then you can't literally go and just crush an entire people and shove them out of an area and the rest of the world be okay with it. I think that they will lose big time if they do. Israel will lose militarily, they'll lose diplomatically, and they'll lose politically. And of course, now then all kinds of bad things happen from that, because once that happens, there's so many different offshoots of things. I couldn't speculate on where things may go, but there's a whole raft of things that are possible, and they're all bad. And so we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But I fear that in the future, people will look back on this moment and say, this was the last chance that Israel, that the United States, that the Middle East, that the world had to avoid a big escalation, which could have consequences that just can't be predicted, but nothing good could come from it. This may be the last chance. If the President of the United States, and I think that is the only human being on the planet that has the ability to stop this, found a backbone and told Israel, you go in this, you are on your own. We will not help you. We will not provide the ammunition you need. Figure it out on your own. If he did that, then there would be a chance that we could avoid the worst outcomes. But I think you probably know where that's going to end up going. But you can count on us at Daniel Davis Deep Dive. Just like we brought you this update today, we're going to continue to stay on top of this story, and we will monitor events as they go, and you can count on us for doing that as well. Also want to let you know we have a great week coming up. A lot of great guests and a lot of things going on at the UN General Assembly. Whether or not Biden's going to give permission to Ukraine to use long-range weapons. What is he going to say at the UN speech? What is Zelensky going to say? A lot of things going on. We have Doug McGregor. We have John Mearsheimer. We have Larry the Shirt Johnson. Got lots of other folks as well. And anything that's developing, all of these things, you can count on Daniel Davis Deep Dive to give you the latest scoop. And we will see you on the next episode of Daniel Davis Deep Dive.